Tonight to worship God and study His Word with us. We'll sing number 272, I've Decided to Follow Jesus. We'll sing the first and second verses of this song. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back, no turning back. Though none go with me, I still will follow. Though none go with me, I still will follow. Though none go with me, I still will follow. No turning back, no turning back. Thank you.
Toby can't hear me. Thank you. What? Nobody can hear me. I'm on. That was a miracle, and I did it. Thursday's Thanksgiving, and on Friday, people will turn on the computer for Black Friday, rush into the stores, knock people down, just one day after being thankful for what they have. In the back foyer is a list of who's up here next Sunday, and the same for after we get past the Thanksgiving next month. So this is a schedule of teachers. If you want to grab a copy of that, it is in the back. One more Thanksgiving comment. I hope it's okay to say this. Last week I shot my first turkey. It was a clean shot. It really upset the people in the frozen food aisle, though. If I could get Ed and maybe somebody over here on this side to pass these out. Last outline, a little bit of a different lesson tonight. It will be biblical, it will be motivational, and it might be inspirational. While they're passing those out, Bill Cooper has requested no visitors while he is in the hospital at Vanderbilt. Everybody gets a chance to work with this one if you so choose. There's some fill-in-the-blank stuff. There's a theory that says a sales guy never gives everything away, because people start flipping through a presentation and you're on page 3 in your mind talking to them and they're on page 8 looking. So there's 5 rules for success. You don't have them written down until I share them with you. Ha ha. And I'll repeat them several times, so if you miss them, you'll be okay. As I said, this is a biblical lesson. It's going to be motivational, and it may be inspirational. And it ties back to our Christian lives, but you can take it with you wherever you want to go. Rule number 1, set for yourself a worthy goal of excellence. Earl Nightingale used to say, set for yourself a goal, or a goal of excellence. And then he got to thinking about it, and he said, well, my goal is to be the best drug dealer in the city of Murfreesboro. No, set for yourself a worthy goal of excellence. In Philippians chapter 3, verse 13, we read, Brethren, I do not regard myself as having laid hold of it yet, but one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and reaching forward to what lies ahead, I press on toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. One thing I do. If you're going to set for yourself a worthy goal of excellence, don't come up with 50. It'd be too hard to make that happen. You might have more than one, We sang a song, I've decided to follow Jesus. That would be an excellent, worthy goal. You need to understand who Jesus was, what Jesus says, what the Bible has to say about him. You just can't say, what would Jesus do? Oh, I tell you what he would do. Based on my opinion, he would do. No. But anyway, set for yourself a worthy goal of excellence. Running with all your might towards the wrong goal or towards no goal at all won't result in success. Carol and I went to J.C. Penney's a couple of days ago. I hadn't been there in about 6 or 7 years. J.C. Penney had an interesting quote. Here's how it went. Give me a stock clerk with a goal, and I'll show you a man who will make history. Give me a man without no goals, and I'll show you a stock clerk. Bill Copeland said this, the trouble with having a goal is you can spend your whole life running up and down the field, never scoring. There are 2 things in life we must do, right? We don't know what they are. Pay taxes and die. Well, we don't have to pay taxes. Some people don't, and they get away with it. So let me frame it up this way. There's 2 things in life we must do. We must die, and we must make choices. Now, I'm going to quote a couple of times from a fellow by the name of Og Mandino. Anybody ever heard of him? He is, I got 2 of his paperback books. He's a great guy in terms of influencing people and helping salespeople to be motivated to get the job done. So here's an Og Mandino quote. To drift from day to day is easy. No skill is required, nor effort or pain. The victory of success is half won when one gains the habit of setting goals and achieving them. Never again will I greet the dawn without a map. Set for yourself a worthy goal of excellence. Do you know if you do that, you're in a very, very elite group of people. Probably less than 10% of the people. You'd be in that group if you have a worthy goal of excellence. If you've written it down, you may be in a worthy 5% goal. Anybody know the name Glenn Cunningham? In 1917, got to get the time right, 1917, he and his older brother were in charge of making sure that they had the fire going in the country schoolhouse where they attended. There was a mix-up between gasoline and kerosene. Boom, there was a huge fire in the schoolhouse. It killed his brother, and it so badly burnt the legs of Glenn Cunningham that the doctor said we need to amputate. They said he's so severely burned, if there's any infection, it could cost him his life. We need to amputate. Well, Cunningham had a goal. He was going to walk again. So they did not amputate. When you look him up, you'll find out he was referred to as the Iron Horse. So was Lou Gehrig, the guy who played for the New York Yankees. At any rate, back to Cunningham. He would eventually recover. It would take a year before he could walk again. Family and friends used ointments on his legs, massaging. After he could walk, there's this crude form of therapy where he's got a hold of a plow, and he's using that just to kind of learn how to walk. One thing about setting goals, when you achieve a goal, set another one. So Cunningham did. I'm going to run, I'm going to be in foot races, and I'm going to excel in foot races. He was a 2-time Olympian. He set a world record for the indoor mile in 1938. It lasted 3 years. And at the time, he had 12 of the fastest 31 track records that were available. Set for yourself a worthy goal of excellence. We'll share 4 things that follow that will help us achieve that goal. Brian Tracy, he begins in his book Goals by stating, if I just have 5 minutes to talk to you, if I can just talk to you for 5 minutes, have your attention, and get to share with you something that's going to help you obtain success, I would tell you this, quote, write down your goals, make plans to achieve them, work on those plans every day. He wrote, your ability to set and achieve goals will have more of an effect on your life than any other skills. You've got to have goals. Living without goals is like driving in a thick fog. No matter how powerful or well-engineered your car, you drive slowly, hesitantly, making little progress on even the smoothest road. Deciding upon your goals clears the fog and allows you to focus and channels your abilities. Clear goals enable you to step on the accelerator of your own life, race ahead rapidly toward achieving more of what you really want. End quote. Robert McCain said this, the reason people don't achieve their goals is because they work on second things first. Set for yourself a worthy goal of excellence. I've decided to follow Jesus, and a possibility. I am going to obtain the prize of the heavenly calling because of his faith, my faith and his grace. Set for yourself a worthy goal of excellence. Eat the frog, not necessarily something any of us want to do, but listen to how Brian Tracy frames that up. Any person who develops a habit of setting clear priorities and getting important tasks completed quickly will run circles around a genius who makes a lot of wonderful plans, talks a lot, but doesn't do anything. Quote, in fact, if the first thing you do each morning is to eat a live frog, you can go through the day with the satisfaction of knowing that this is probably the worst thing that's going to happen to you all day long. Your frog is your biggest, most important task, the one that you're most likely to procrastinate on if you don't do something about it. It's also the one task that can have the greatest positive impact on your life and results now. His encouragement, continually remind yourself that one of the most important decisions you make each day is your choice of what you will do immediately and what you will do later. The key to reaching high levels of performance and productivity, along with being paid more and promoted faster, are determined by one's ability to tackle major tasks first and disciplines oneself until those tasks are completed. End quote. Have you heard of Zig Ziglar? Some people have. Really cool motivational speaker. In his goals workshop, he liked to tell this story. Between 1979 and 1989, Harvard University conducted a study of its graduates in the MBA program. Now, try to zoom in on this. I realize I'm reading and you're listening. The graduates were asked if they had set clear written goals in the future and if they had made specific plans to accomplish them. It turned out that only 3% of the graduates had written goals and plans. 13% had goals, but they had not written them down. And 84% had no specific goals aside from getting out of school and enjoying the summer. 10 years later, they went back to those same classes and interviewed them. And what they found, really amazing. They found that the 13% who had goals that were not written down were earning on average twice as much as the 84% who had no goals at all. But the truly great find was that the 3% who had clearly written out their goals and plans were earning on average 10 times as much as 97% of the graduates altogether. Ziegler said this, the problem in life is not a lack of time, it's a lack of opportunity, a lack of direction. He said this, when will we ever figure out that if we will but do the things we ought to do, when we ought to do them, the day will come when we will do the things we want to do, when we want to do them. Set for yourself a worthy goal of excellence. Ziegler also liked to talk about Howard Hill. And if I call him Harold Hill, please forgive me. Anybody know who Harold Hill was? Several people. Meredith Willson's The Music Man. Harold Hill, Professor Harold Hill, who went after Madam Librarian. My wife was a librarian. Apologize for trying to sing. Anyway, he liked to tell the story about Howard Hill. He was an archer, and he had two major distinctions. And the first one just kind of like, what? He is the first white man to ever kill a wild elephant with a bow and arrow. And just think about that for a minute. White elephant, bow and arrow. He's the first white man to ever kill an elephant. The second thing he's kind of noted for escapes me because I'm not much of an archer. But he was able to pull a 172-pound bow a distance of 26 inches, which apparently is very impressive. He was in 196 consecutive field archery tournaments, including 7 straight national titles. Then he dropped out. Why, you say? Nobody would compete against him. He was also a stand-in bowman for several movies that Errol Flynn was in. And I like the old Robin Hood movie. And when I watch it again, I'll know, hey, that's not Errol Flynn, that's Howard Hill shooting the arrow through the bullseye. Now, once he set the stage for this, Ziegler would tell people this: if you will give me 30 minutes of your time, just 30 minutes, and understand, I'm not a really good archer, but if you'll give me 30 minutes of your time, I'll have you hitting the bullseye better than Howard Hill, providing you'll allow me to do one thing. Blindfold Howard Hill, spin him around 3 times, and then let him shoot. Thank you. Usually you'll get a chuckle from somebody who'll kind of laugh. How do you think Howard Hill is going to be able to hit the bullseye blindfolded when you spun him around 3 times? To which Ziegler would say, you are right. And how do you think you're going to be able to make a goal that you don't even have? Set for yourself a worthy goal of excellence. Number 2, okay, I got my goal. What do? Do I just sit on it? Put first things first. Matthew chapter 6, verse 33 says, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Seek first. Put first things first. With Jesus, this was priority number 1. Seek first. We all have a lot of things to do. It's amazing, but we all have the same 24 hours. And it's amazing, but some people get things done that other people can't even begin to start. Maybe, just maybe, the reason for that is the people who can get things done have a goal, and they prioritize the goal. Football coach Lou Holtz said this: the kamikaze pilot who flew 50 missions was involved, but never committed. I got anybody young in here, real young? Maybe. Kamikaze pilot's a suicide mission. He threw 50 of them. Okay. Commitment may be the most important behavior of all. The king thought he knew best. He was working his priorities, but it's better to work God's priorities. 1 Samuel 15:22 says, Samuel said, has the Lord as much delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of the rams. It's always best to listen to God. I will set for myself a worthy goal of excellence. I will put first things first. Because of Jesus' obedience, he's able to provide for us eternal salvation. The Hebrew author said it this way, chapter 5, verse 9. And having been made perfect, he became to all those who obey him the source of eternal life. Charles Schwab, if you know the name today, it's because he has a brokerage firm. The Charles Schwab I want to talk about is over 100 years ago, and he was the president of Bethlehem Steel. Now, I've heard this story several different ways, so I'm just going to default and go with Mary Kay Ash's book, You Can Have It All, Lifetime of Wisdom from America's Foremost Woman Entrepreneur. Over 100 years ago, Charles Schwab, president of Bethlehem Steel, he wanted to increase his business. He wanted to have greater efficiency in his business. And there's this little efficiency consultant called Ivy Lee. He's actually a well-known expert at the time. And he approaches Schwab and he has a proposition for him. I can increase efficiency in your company. I can increase your sales. I can make things financially better for you and your executives. And Schwab says, well, how much is it going to cost? Lee says, I need to spend 15 minutes with each of your top executives, and it won't cost you anything until 3 months later. If it works, just pay me whatever you think it was worth. Well, Schwab knew when he was made an offer he couldn't refuse. Yep, that's fine. He tells the executives basically, this is what's going to happen. Meet with this guy, do what he says. When Lee meets with the executives, he says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take, at the end of the day, your most important things you have to do tomorrow. I'll only choose 6. And I want you to write them down. And tomorrow when you come to work, I want you to number them. And I want you to start on number 1. And if you get it done, scratch it off. Then I want you to go to number 2. And the executive said, that's all you want? He said, yeah, that's all I want. 3 months later, Charles Schwab evaluated the results, liked what he saw, and wrote Ivy Lee a check for $35,000. To put that in perspective, over 100 years ago, the average worker was paid $2 a day. What did Ivy Lee say do? Put first things first. Anybody ever used a Franklin planner? Yeah, I used it when I worked, loved it. The basic concept is, at the end of the day, here's today's page, here's tomorrow's page, you flip it over, and you write down the things you have to do tomorrow. And you have A things. You may have A1, A2, A3. You may have B1, B2, B3. You may have some C things. You're probably not going to have any D things. If you do, they're going to fall off the list very quickly. And at the end of the day, you repeat the process. Here's what you have. If you go all day long, and there are interruptions and there are things that happen in the workplace, but if all you get done is the A1, the first thing on your list, you go home at the end of the day with the satisfaction that the most important thing you had to do, you did. Time is your enemy. You remember the movie Bridge on the River Kwai? Anybody see that? Came out in the late 1950s. Sir Alex Guinness, Obi-Wan Kenobi, for those of you that know the program, was Colonel Nicholson. Now, the basic premise is it's World War II. There's the Japanese. He and his men are captured by the Japanese. Nicholson is very proud. He's British. British honor, British pride. The Japanese want him to build a bridge because they have British engineering and they know how to do it. The Japanese don't. Besides that, there's not that many of them overseeing the camp. He resists. Finally, though, the conditions in the camp are deteriorating. The men are deteriorating. They don't really have anything to do. They're not getting the nourishment they need to get. And so he says, okay, we'll build a bridge for you, but I want you to take care of my people. And they do. They build a magnificent bridge, and he is swelled with pride. He forgot his goal. You see, his goal was to help win World War II by defeating the Japanese. Well, a fellow British officer, they come in and line the bridge with explosives so they can blow it up to prevent the Japanese from advancing. Nicholson, who's lost track of his goal, doesn't want this guy to blow up the beautifully engineered British Labour bridge. But when he comes to his senses with his last dying breath, he says, "What have I done?" as he falls down and poof, ignites and blows up the bridge. Now, we're not a lot different from Nicholson. It's very easy to get caught up in day-to-day activities. It's very easy to lose sight of the big picture, which is our goal. And as Christians, we may have secular goals, but we certainly can have religious, centered, focused goals. Henry Ford, that's probably a name everybody knows. May not know this story. In 1896, they constructed a quadricycle. And as they're going to take it out of the building, the doors aren't big enough. So they knock the bricks down, take the quadricycle out. There's a lesson for you and I, and that is, if bricks are blocking us up, so to speak, knock them down. Get them out of the way. Don't let bricks take us away from our goal and putting first things first. Get them out of the way. In the short essay, The Common Denominator of Success, W. Gray says this. Let me back up. He spent years, what is the one denominator that allows me to distinguish successful people from unsuccessful people? Maybe it's hard work. Maybe it's good luck. Maybe it's the ability to have good relationships with people. And he said, no, the one thing that distinguishes people from successful from those who are not successful is putting first things first. Number 3 on your list, biblical rules for success. Do it enthusiastically. Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, do your work heartily, as for the Lord rather than for men. Wednesday night I had the Devo, short notice, but that was okay. I won't say who, but as I was giving the Devo, I looked in the audience along about right here and saw a woman yawning. And I thought, oh, Lord, please don't let me yawn, because yawning is contagious. You know what else is contagious? Laughter. You get 4 or 5 people together and one of them starts laughing. The other people have no idea what's going on, but they start laughing too. Guess what? Enthusiasm is also contagious. Years ago, Nashville wasn't necessarily known as a country music empire. It was an insurance empire. And there was a company there that told their agents, you can come to work without your brains, and you can get forgiveness, but if you come to work without your enthusiasm, you will be fired. Enthusiasm turns ordinary actions into extraordinary achievements. It's the secret sauce for success. Again, quoting Og Mandino, enthusiasm is the greatest asset in the world. Its potential value far surpasses money, power, and influence. Enthusiasm can move castles and charm brutes. It's the genius of sincerity, and truth is rarely victorious over it. There is no person, no occupation, no trouble that cannot be affected by my good attitude. I will always bathe my days in the golden glow of enthusiasm. And you know what? If you have to, fake it until you make it. And that's not being hypocritical. For example, if I said to you to be positive, you have to act positive. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. If you can't be enthusiastic, fake it until you make it. Jerome Bruner is credited with saying this: one is more likely to act their way into feeling than they are to feel their way into acting. We don't need Eeyore Christians. You know, Winnie the Pooh, the 100-Acre Woods, Piglet, Tigger. Tigger's the only one, if you remember. And then there's Eeyore. Well, I guess I ought to write him a card today. We don't need Eeyore Christians. Do it enthusiastically as to the Lord. Here's an African parable that kind of sets the stage. You don't need emotion to be a driver. You can be a driver without emotion. Here's the story. Each day in Africa, a gazelle wakes up knowing, I got to run faster than the lion or I'll be dead and eaten. Each day in Africa, a lion wakes up and says, I got to run faster than the slowest gazelle, or I won't have food and I'll die. You don't have to have emotion. You don't have to be motivated by emotion. So, here's the lesson. It doesn't matter whether you're a gazelle or a lion. When the sun comes up, start running. If it helps to be enthusiastic, we should count our blessings and not our troubles. Number 4, and then some. And then some. Matthew 5:41 says, whoever forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Now, there's an author, unknown, who wrote this little thing about the second mile, and here's how it reads. I will do more than belong, I will participate. When the bell rings, the Lord's Supper will be served down here, and if you miss me saying number 5, I'll repeat it as people come back in. And then some. I will do more than care, I will help. I will do more than believe, I will practice. I will do more than be fair, I will be kind. I will do more than forgive, I will forget. I will do more than dream, I will work. I will do more than teach, I will inspire. I will do more than earn, I will enrich. I will do more than give, I will serve. I will do more than live, I will grow. I will do more than suffer, I will triumph. This is a simple concept. This couldn't be any more complicated than this. Just do whatever is expected and a little bit more, and then some. And by the way, when you do that, be observant enough to watch, because you're going to blow people away. Because people in the workplace want to do less than what's required, or only what's required. But if you do and then some, if you're a servant of the Lord Jesus Christ and then some is a part of your life, it's a powerful testimony. I'm going to read from the English Standard Version. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 1 says, finally, brethren, we request and exhort you in the Lord Jesus that as you receive from us instruction as to how you ought to walk and please God, just as you actually do walk, that you excel still more, and then some. Again, Ogmandino said this, henceforth, when my day's work is ended, I will surprise the world. I will remain at my task just a little longer and let that extra effort be an investment in my tomorrow. I will do my work with all the intensity I can put forth, not just my work and no more, but a little more. If you're familiar with the Go-Giver, here's a quote from that. Your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Roger Staubach, many years ago, quarterback under Tom Landry with the Dallas Cowboys, said this, there are no traffic jams when you go the extra mile. I want to tell you about Andrew and gas station, but before I do, I need to set the stage because this goes back a ways. There was a time in my life when you could go into a gas station to buy gas and an attendant came out and washed your windshield, checked your oil, and if you bought enough gallons of gas, he might have a glass jar or a plate or something that he gave you. So go back in that time period and learn about the gas station attendant. After pumping Andrew's gas, he said it'll be $10.10. Andrew gave him a $20 bill. And he said, do you have a dime? And Andrew said, well, yeah, I do, but I'm kind of hoping to get back some $1 bills because the coffee machine at work That's the bell for those who need the Lord's Supper. The coffee machine at work is really erratic, and it just doesn't take every $1 bill you put in there. And I'm hoping out of the 9 $1 bills you give me back, some of those might work in the coffee machine. So the attendant gives him 90 cents. Back then they used to carry all those dollar bills in their pockets, the attendants did, and he pulls out a whole big wad of money, and he starts kind of going through it. And realizing he's taking a while, he tells the driver, "I'm sorry to take so long. I'm trying to find the best 9 $1 bills I have for you." And as he goes through the list and as he selects those 9 that are really good and crisp, and he gives them to Andrew, he says, "I hope these work for you." There's 4 gas stations Andrew passes on his way to work. Which one do you think he stops at? And then some. A wonderful, powerful concept. Number 5. I make no apologies. It is a dirty 4-letter word, but it's found in God's Word over 600 times. And the word is work. Now, I've set for myself a goal of excellence. I have put first things first. I am doing this enthusiastically. I am embracing the concept of and then some, and now I'm going to work. I've chosen John chapter 9, verse 4. We must work the works of him who sent me as long as it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. Again, augmendino. There is but one certain method of achieving one's goals, and that is through hard labor, both mental and physically. If I am not willing to pay that price for distinction, I should be prepared to resign myself to a future of tears and poverty while I beat my chest in self-pity. Work. They don't have circuses anymore. Anybody ever have an opportunity to go to a circus in your lifetime? Those big old huge mongoose elephants. Do you know how they anchor those bad boys down? They tie a rope around their front leg. Pow, pow, pow. And they stake it in the ground. And those elephants, who could just about go where they wanted and do what they wanted, stand there convinced I can't go because they got a rope around their foot. Well, here's the rest of the story. When that little baby is first born, in the circus, they would tie a rope around his front leg, stake it down into the ground. And he learned at a very early age, when that rope's tied around my foot, I can't go anywhere. Obviously, as the elephant came into maturity and size, he could rip that thing up without hardly trying at all. But he was convinced, the elephant that is, was convinced he couldn't do that. Set for myself a worthy goal of excellence. Put first things first. Do it enthusiastically. And embrace the concept of and then some, and then work. And guess what? We're not a whole lot different than those elephants. We hold ourselves back. We're held back by others. Why? Because we believe we can't do that. We failed in the past. I went to the hospital to visit so-and-so, and it was a horrible visit. I muffed it. I blew it. I didn't do good at all. I won't be going to the hospital to visit people again. I wrote a note to somebody who'd had a death in their family. Poor penmanship, struggled with what to say. They probably didn't even appreciate what I said. I won't be doing that anymore. Well, you know, I could never teach a Bible class. No, I can't go with you to have that Bible study. We hold ourselves back because of a self-imposed artificial limitation. The elephant can't go anywhere because a rope's tied around his front leg. And we hold ourselves back. We would be wise to find out what's holding us back, and we would be wise to, like the quadricycle, bust the bricks out of the way and not let us hold us back. Who knows the name Samuel Langley? I do. Oh, life's too short not to have fun. Besides, I feel so good. This is my last class for a while. And if you've never taught a class, you have no idea how much time it takes. Anyway, back to Samuel Langley. He should be known, but he's really not well known. You do know Oliver and Wilbur, the Wright brothers. But Langley, he had the backing of the government. He had private investment money. He had business people behind him. He had reporters following him around. And what the Wright brothers had, not a formal education, not a lot of money, and a bicycle shop. But they're the ones we remember because they had a goal. We're going to fly. David McCullough, in his book, The Wright Brothers, and I think this is on your handout, there's 5 things that he lists about the Wright brothers. Number 1, to fail is to learn. Whether you like the guy or not doesn't matter. Elon Musk was watching a news report the other day, and they said, this guy has failed so many times in his life, but he turns failures into learning lessons, and he excels. Well, that's what the Wright brothers did. Failure didn't cause them to quit. Failure was an opportunity to learn and improve and go forward. Number 2, he lists in the book, ignore the prophets of doom. You'll never be able to fly. Even Thomas Edison in 1895 said this, quote, it is apparent to me that the possibilities of the aeroplane, which 2 or 3 years ago were thought to hold the solution to the problem, have been exhausted and that we must turn elsewhere. The Wright brothers believed in themselves and they had a goal of excellence. Number 3 in the book, he says, don't focus on what you don't have. Their dream was self-funded, not a lot of money, but it was enough. They learned as they went along, and they didn't worry about what they didn't have. Number 4, excuses don't get you anywhere. The Wright brothers could have written a very thick book about all the reasons why we're sorry, but we're not going to be able to fly, and neither is anybody else. Setbacks all along the way. They could have thrown the towel in and said, we're done. Number 5, don't quit. They never lost sight of their goal, and they never quit. They could have quit. You might argue they should have quit. Continued criticism and a lack of support would have been an easy reason for them to say, hey, we're done, forget it. Oliver and Wilbur Wright can be described with 7 words. Dream big, work hard, never give up. What 7 words describe our life? In summation, we are Christians gathered together who desire to obtain the heavenly prize. You can make it secular if you want, but you can also make it spiritual. Set for yourself a worthy goal of excellence. Put first things first. Do it enthusiastically. Add the concept and then some, and then work. Probably about 60 seconds. Questions, comments, observations? I very much appreciate those of you that have been in this class. It has been good to see you, and whatever feedback you've had, I've appreciated that. As I said before, it is an incredible task. My major professor in college, David Walker, I forget the quote where it came from, but he said, for every minute in a presentation, you should have an hour behind it. So you just think about a class that lasts about 40 minutes. That means 40 hours behind it. And I can tell you that there may be more than that behind these series. So thank you very much. By my judgment, the bell should ring in the next 15 seconds. And by the way, I hadn't heard the first bell. Did it ring? No first bell?
Yes.
Oh, really? Good. I purposely tune them out. Thank you very much.